So if I'm tweeting out something that is like touching the line but not crossing it, that's the whole goal, is just to kind of mock a situation or satirize it. God, it's such a dark thing that we're always going to be looking for that new scapegoat. With the internet, the need for a scapegoat is considerably more frequent.
Has there ever been a point where you've thought, maybe it's time to close up shop? How close have you come to that?
There's a very conscious reason why I act the way that I act on Twitter. I just feel like there's so much negativity that it's almost harder, but it's worth it to be a person who's just making hot dog jokes.
Yeah, you can say brain-dead things on Twitter and Facebook, like anybody can do that. But why not LinkedIn? That's the challenge for 2021, is to get real awkward on LinkedIn.
I'm going to have to make a LinkedIn right after this. Reserve my name.
It's to get quickly banned from LinkedIn. Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown. I am Kevin Lieber. This is the home of Make Something Mean Something. We are live on Discord because it's TCU night, Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. We are always here with you and for you. We have our chat open to all of our patrons, our $2 tots, our dumpster crew, our infantry, and our illustrious baby gang. But for free and for everyone are about 10 million people listening right now, because we have a very exciting episode for you. Is that not right, Matthew Tabor?
Yes, it's absolutely true. This is fantastic turnout. I can't even count them. I can't even count in general. It's very hard. This is the real breaking news here. Is Vsauce 2 can't count beyond his fingers. So 50 years ago, I was thinking about the history today. 50 years ago, about 1970, 71, a man named Dr. Demento began a radio show that played parodies and nonsense and off-color songs that touched on taboo themes, and they were often quite dark. He single-handedly launched the career of Weird Al. With over 200 million views on YouTube, Rusty Cage has carried that torch into a new century of black comedy and popular appeal. And speaking of dark comedic doctors, Rusty recently portrayed Dr. Retardo, a mad puppet master controlling H3H3's half-nude Ethan Klein. And that earned Rusty a permanent ban from the TikTok platform. Rusty's songs are occasionally dangerous. One of his most popular is about the knife game, in which one rapidly stabs a knife between his extended fingers in a defined pattern, preferably while one is stumbling drunk. 25 million people have watched that on YouTube alone, and it's important to watch rather than just listen. Otherwise, you hear this poppy timbre of a woodblock on a quick beat. In reality, that's Rusty stabbing the knife into a table as he successfully executes the knife game at increasing speeds. Occasionally, he goes rated G, like the family-friendly Noose song. Rusty is a real artist, though. The kind of artist that artists themselves like. He's a kind of triathlete of creative talent with humor, music, and also illustration. His comic Requiem of the Crazies has been successfully crowdfunded again, absolutely smashing the goal to make its third volume. And you'll want to reserve an issue of that. We'll put a link in the description. He's also something of a popular scientist, as he's recently conducted a 30-day public experiment of his own sobriety, and he's developed social theories about white girls and dogs. He's oh, yeah. Oh, I can't do it. Okay. He's
I'm sorry.
Oh, God. I threw that in right at the last second as we were talking, and I thought, yeah, I can read this without a problem. No, I can't, actually. Rusty is a third of the Trash Rats podcast with Simeon Jimmy, who has never gone by another name on YouTube, and Reactor. check out episode number 16 with Meat Canyon if you liked last week's conversation with Papa Meat. And anytime Eggy is on, it's a must listen. This introduction makes Rusty sound a little insane, but he's delightful to be around. He's famous within the creator community for his hospitality, hosting welcoming, extremely chill parties. The first time I stepped foot into one, someone immediately asked me if I wanted to go into Rusty's shed to eat raw eggs for a video. I declined, and it's very high on my list of regrets. So, look, Rusty, you're the world's expert on crazy. Who is normal?
Well, first I got to say thank you for that very thorough and great intro that you gave me. You say who is normal?
Yeah. Is anybody?
I don't know. Well, yeah, I guess some people are normal, but yeah, there's a lot of normal people. There's the normies that are out in society all the time, and they just kind of get all their humor from, Facebook and whatever their workplace banter is. But I'm sure they all have their own quirks and weirdness about them, whether they tell people or not. I don't know. Maybe the Southern Baptists are normal.
Specifically. What about all of us who are on the internet all day? Are there any normal people who are on the internet all day, or are those is that what Facebook is?
Yeah, that's what I think Facebook is. Like, whenever I spend most of my time, I feel like nowadays on Twitter, and you just get like the strangeness from all over the place. You're allowed to just follow whoever the hell you want. You go back to Facebook, and it's people like sharing like Twitter's trash, or maybe not just Twitter's trash, but the rest of the internet's trash memes. And, they're giggling about something that just kind of makes me cringe to look at, because it's something that was, I don't know, funny a month ago. But I feel like that is about as close to normal as you can get on the internet, is just Facebook, talking to your family or whatever, your grandparents.
Do you think you're going to last too much longer on Twitter? Do you think any of us are?
Oh my God. Well, I don't know if I should be saying this, but this is like my 5th iteration on Twitter. I've been kicked off like 4 or 5 times at this point. So it's hard to say if I'm going to last, but I don't know. Is it going to be so washed down or watered down that it's just going to be like any strangeness, anything remotely critical or straying away from whatever narrative the media is forcing Twitter to push? Like, are they just going to force us all out for even questioning this, or posting something that might be against TOS that's constantly growing larger and larger and more vague, just so they can pick and choose who they want and who they don't want to be on their platform? It's possible they'll kick us all off. And I know that day's probably going to come again for whatever reason. I don't know yet.
I saw today.
I don't know, just the other day.
Sorry, I was going to say just a huge amount of people today left for Minds. Now that, some of the others like Parler are at least paralyzed, if not dead. But a bunch of people, many of whom are on not their first account. They just took off voluntarily for Minds because they thought that it was going to be a matter of time before they got nuked anyway.
Yeah, I wonder if this is actually going to last, because I feel like every time there is a Twitter purge, people will create accounts on Parler or Minds, or I guess Gab is another competitor. Sorry.
Yeah.
But then I think if those sites don't actually take off, and if you don't instantly build a community, people just end up coming right back to Twitter, because that's where everyone is. So I'm surprised. Like, why didn't they take down Minds? Or is there not, people saying controversial things on there, or I don't know, calling for violence or something? I'm not really sure why they even took Parler off. It's still so strange to me. To me, that's like one of the scariest things, that they just can completely nuke a website for seemingly no reason other than, I don't know. It's like the reason why they say they nuked it was the same reason, or the same things that people do on Twitter all the fucking time.
Yeah. It with Parler too, it was weird because they did that end around nuke, sort of like the LA county government, like shutting off people's power and electricity because they had parties during the COVID era.
Right.
They shut down Amazon Web Services, which that doesn't directly shut down Parler, but it effectively does. It obliterates Parler's ability to operate. They claim they're going to be back up in a week. Who knows if that's true? But what's it like to be in your position where you've got edgy-ish stuff here and there, things that can really rile certain groups who are happy to report accounts as well, when you're kind of perpetually on the chopping block? I mean, what's that
I don't
like?
Well, I feel like that on a lot of websites. I mean, especially YouTube, or at least first on YouTube, where the thing is, I guess in my head, I don't think that I'm doing anything incorrect against the terms of service, or at least that's not my intent. And so if I'm tweeting out something or posting something that is like touching the line but not crossing it, that's the whole goal, is just to, try to not really rile people up, but kind of mock a situation or satirize it. But it's very frustrating because I don't know if what I'm about to do is going to get my channel nuked, or is it going to get me blacklisted or get my Twitter suspended. And so it's a lot of second guessing myself. I don't know. It's I guess sometimes whenever I'm just drinking late at night, I don't really care. Like I'll kind of tweet something and then wake up the next day and go, oh fuck, I should probably delete that. Like it seemed like a great idea the night before, and I was saying, who cares if I get my Twitter suspended? I'll make a new one. But it's like, it's such an asset to even have a Twitter or to have a YouTube. That's really like, these are the major ways of reaching out to an audience. So they kind of have you under their thumb a little bit, and you have to play by the rules and figure out what you can and can't get away with. And I guess the thing that really bothers me is whenever, you get a strike or you get reprimanded for something you tweeted, and then you see just famous people like the check marks, and they're allowed to say whatever the hell they want. And I mean, I guess there's just a double standard there. Like once you're verified or whatever, you can kind of, you have a lot more leeway.
I saw that David Cross as a check mark. I loved David Cross in the 90s. Kevin and I have talked about how much we loved Mr. Show with Bob and David.
Right.
Like David Cross is an incredibly funny guy. I like him in terms of his work, but he's out there trying to flip the switch on the boogaloo, and nobody seems to care.
I haven't followed him on Twitter. Is he just mouthing off constantly?
Yeah, he just had one of those responses that was like, all these people calling for violence, whatever, let's do it. And, look, I don't know how somebody with his constitution
I want blood.
is.
I think that's what he said.
Yeah, that's
which,
right.
like, if that's not inciting violence, I don't know what is. Calling for blood.
Right. And so then there's like this thing too, where, when everyone's put in this position where it's like, oh, they're allowed to say this, but you are not. The elites can say it, you can't. And I don't want to hate on David Cross because, I mean, he's always been an edgy comedian from what I understand. So it's like he's just doing what he does. But it does kind of like make this hatred, like a slight hatred for these people, for David Cross, where you're like, you just don't like that he's allowed to get away with stuff that the average person isn't. How is anyone else supposed to come up these days doing something edgy or towing the line or whatever? It's not allowed anymore.
Mm-hmm. Is there anybody who you hate, who you wish you could just rip on with zero consequences?
No, not really, because I like everyone's take. I follow a lot of people that I don't like, just to kind of get a different perspective, to see everyone else's viewpoints on something, even if they're loudmouths or if they're not. But I don't really see anyone, in particular saying something that I absolutely hate them for. I understand there's like hustlers out there, there's con men out there. Everyone's just doing their own thing. So whenever someone's playing a role, for instance, someone like, I don't know, like Sean King, the Talcum X, pretending to be a black guy. And I'm like, well, that's his hustle. So whatever, I can respect that. He's just doing what he has to do to make some cash, get his message out there.
What were the things that you got banned for from Twitter?
It's all bullshit. All of it is bullshit. So, all right, maybe the first two times it was my fault. The first time I got suspended was I kind of went on like a tirade, late night tirade. I was drinking a little bit, and I was posting these videos where I was pretending that like Sargento Cheese was holding me hostage at gunpoint and forcing me to tweet out like really positive things about Sargento. And, Sargento, there's no better Wednesday night than taco night with Sargento Cheese. And later that night, I ended up changing my avatar so it had the Sargento logo over it. And I guess that's considered impersonation. So I got suspended the first time for impersonating a cheese company. One of them was I was waiting for Red Dead Redemption 2 to come out, and I tweeted out, I can't wait for Red Dead Redemption 2 to come out so I can drag a prostitute behind my horse and then put bait on her and let a cougar eat her. And I guess that's considered a threat. And they have like a zero tolerance policy against
a threat to a video game character.
Yeah,
NPCs.
A video game character for a video game that hadn't even come out yet. And that's what you're supposed to do in the game. You're supposed to do violent things. So I was just showing my excitement for the upcoming game. But that was like a whole thing where people kind of figured out a loophole in Twitter's system where, anyone saying anything that could be remotely construed as threatening, they could just report it. And Twitter has zero, no checking system, no support or anything. So if they see the strike and they read it, or their bots read it and they say, yep, that's absolutely a threat, they'll just nuke your account. So really, you can get, people were getting suspended left and right for saying things like, oh my God, I could kill my friend right now because he peed on my couch. He's not actually going to kill his friend, but that's enough to, get you suspended.
Right. This is a major plot point in 12 Angry Men. I don't know if you know that movie. I know 12 Angry Men.
Isn't this like the 1950s?
Yeah.
I thought I was pushing it when I referenced Dr. Demento starting in 70 or 71. And now you're going further back. This is like, I feel like it's a challenge at this point that I've got to pull some shit from the 20s in a few minutes.
Well, look, you got to beat 1957. 12 Angry Men is a phenomenal film that completely holds up. And I recommend it to anyone, literally anyone. There's no way to not like this film. It's fantastic.
It's classic.
And
it definitely holds up. It holds up in the way that like everything they're saying, it's like, it's the 3 or the 12 jurors all deliberating on whatever the murder trial, and everything that they're saying, everything they're arguing is still very relevant, and you see all their arguments happening constantly in everyday life.
Yeah, and that's one of them is that the supposed killer said like I'll kill you or something,
right?
And then and one of the jurors makes the argument like, well, that's just a turn of phrase. Anybody would say that and not really mean it. And later on in the movie, a guy who doesn't believe him says that, and that's like one of those like breaking moments of that juror. But that's exactly the point of that. Yeah, is that a turn of phrase is not a threat.
Do you think that people are purposely being ignorant in order to kind of get people, deplatformed? Like whenever someone says something like that, like, oh my God, I could kill him. And they go, see, this person's calling for violence. When really, just look at it. Is this actually what the person is saying? Or is it just very convenient that they said it? And now you can, take action against them. Or do they actually believe it? Or do they like trick themselves into believing their own hysteria?
On Twitter, I'm going to answer this one because I've been the subject of some of these things a bit more often than squeaky clean Kevin Lieber of Vsauce 2. I think it's about 80-20. There are so many where 80% are really happy to take the opportunity to ding you, and they know full well that it is a turn of phrase, or it's something that's out of context, or just anything that nullifies any level of threat. But they're so thrilled to wield the pitchfork against you that they run with it anyway. And I think about 20% truly do believe the stuff, and they're kind of overscared. They overreact to all sorts of things, and they think the world is an extremely, extremely dangerous place. By the way, at least in the U.S., it's not. And every bit of data we have on violent crime statistics shows a steady decline for like 30 years. It's so much safer now than it was when we were kids. Yet you wouldn't think that from the way people talk. Everybody thinks they're going to get stabbed and abducted and shot and whatever if they stray like a block from their house. So a portion of people absolutely are convinced that you're a monster when you tweet these things, and the other 80% are quite happy to pretend.
Yeah, and even the ones that are pretending, I mean, that's a really malicious thing for them to do. And, definitely, the crime rates are down. It's strange when, you go on social media and you watch the news and everyone's just talking about how terrible the world is and how they're, in the streets, there are villains. There's a new villain every week ready to attack you for whatever the thing is this month, whether it's your religion or your race or your politics or whatever. But if you just go outside and talk to people, for the most part, you're not running into anything even remotely close to this. But people will still talk about it. It's almost like being afraid triggers a weird instinctual thing inside of humans that causes them to band together. I mean, I guess they get strength from knowing that there's a common enemy. So the media knows this, so they're constantly pushing a new common enemy on you. And that can, cause everyone to band together and vote on a certain policy or something like that.
Click on the thing they want you to click on.
Oh, right, yeah.
It also just has commercial reasons where people just want the attention, they want the clicks. And yeah, kicking in that fear mechanism is such a low-hanging fruit, easy way to do that. I've been watching this, I want to update from a podcast that we did a couple of podcasts ago where I talked about like who's watching, 3-hour YouTube videos. Well, I'm happy to report that I started watching a 4.5-hour YouTube video.
Oh my God.
Then. It is a video explaining Twin Peaks, and it's 4.5 hours. And I'm not going to bore people who aren't into Twin Peaks who are listening to this, but essentially the thesis of this video is that the point of Twin Peaks is to talk about how television dehumanizes violence and feeds off of people's fears. And this is a show from like 1989, 1990 originally, and David Lynch was incredibly worried about the effect television was having on just scaring the crap out of everyone, and like that was their business. I feel like that business is booming now, and it's not obviously just TV. It's also the internet, and it must be 100 times worse than it was in 1990. I feel like that's everything now. Everything is all, here's what we're mad about. Not only here's what we're mad about today, but here's what we're mad about for the next 30 minutes. And just wait until the next thing comes along in an hour. It's going to be even more rage-inducing.
Well, it's crazy to see how like the media finds a new boogeyman every other week, and everyone just completely focuses their attention towards that new thing and forgets about the horrible people that they were complaining about the week before. I mean, granted they're kind of disbanded, but no one really complains about the Westboro Baptist Church anymore. But I remember that was something that you'd always hear about how they're protesting, a soldier's funeral or something, holding up the signs. I probably shouldn't say what they say, but
God hates F slurs, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I hate as I'm getting older is seeing how complacent my peers are becoming. Like they're no longer questioning what they're being told. They just go along with that thing because everyone else in the community agrees with what they hear. And so if you don't hate this common enemy, then you are the outsider at this point. And I don't know, it just drives me nuts. Like when did we start just listening to the media and believing everything they say? And I hope I'm not coming off like a crazy guy, like the media is lying to you, but they are.
Oh, it's completely sensible that you would say that they're over-focusing on something in a way that portrays it as being a bigger problem than it really is. And I'm really glad that you specifically mentioned Westboro Baptist Church, because I had an experience with that in probably, I can't think about the past very well. It must have been about 15 years ago. And I was in England for a while, and somebody was saying, things are so dangerous in the U.S. I'm like, no. There really is no problem anywhere. And they said, well, but you've got the Westboro Baptist Church. I'm like, look, this is literally like 24 ding-dongs
Right,
who do
right.
an outrageous thing. They had no idea. Tom threw the link in the Wikipedia link in the chat, as Tom does. I click now. It says members right now are 70. There are 300 million people in the United States right now. If there are dozens of people who do terrible things, which are on display for those 300 million people to look at and say, oh, that's nuts. Those people are crazy, and completely discard them. It's really not much of a threat, but this person had no idea that it was a tiny
the amount of people
organization.
listening to this right now on Discord. We could have a capture the flag game against the Westboro Baptist Church
Right.
and match up like almost 1-to-1, and just to give you a sense, like there's not that many of them, and to think it's like this nationwide epidemic just shows you how skewed that perception can be just from hearing it, on the news or whatever. Like it's this harrowing group. It's like the movie The Warriors.
Oh, like in the 90s, it was just a normal thing to kind of bring these people on Jerry Springer and mock them, show them for the monsters that they are. They had like KKK members and Grand Wizards on every other week, and on Howard Stern and whatnot, and people would just listen to it and they would laugh. But then I think they realized along the way, like, wait a minute, this is more than just entertainment. This could be something that we can, really rile everyone up and build up the fear and tell them that, the KKK is alive and well and larger than ever. I don't know how many people are in the KKK, but I can imagine, I would if I had to guess, it would probably be less than 300. And so I don't know.
Very,
I mean,
small,
you have to make it seem like they're everywhere. They're your friends, not just the KKK, but whatever it is now, whether it's like Proud Boys or QAnon or the alt-right, which I thought was funny when that just kind of popped up out of nowhere. And now that's like the largest threat in the country, when 4 years ago, no one had even heard of it or even cared. And also it was kind of a joke whenever it started, from what I understand.
Kevin, I have a question for you. And Rusty, we're going to talk about you as if you're not here right now. So it's time to get awkward. What I'm hearing, though, from what both of you have said is that there's this scapegoat mechanism at play. And this is for the people who don't know, this is one of the great videos that Kevin made years ago about human behavior. There's this long one. I think the Invention of Blame, is that what it's called, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like the theme that you guys are discussing. Is Rusty Cage a scapegoat on these platforms? Is the banning and the reporting and kind of general sneering in your direction a function of people doing exactly what you're both talking about, just on online media?
Yeah. Oh, the scapegoat mechanism happens over and over again on small scales and on really, really large scales. And that video, it's called The Invention of Blame, and then parentheses scapegoat mechanism, is the one video that I've made that I'm so disappointed it doesn't have, honestly, like 100 million views. Because to me, and I mean, Matt, you worked with me on it. You know what that video, what information is. And I just feel like it explains so much about society, because that's really what it's about. Like the crux of the concept is that in order for societies to continue to stay together, instead of just people being at each other's throats and killing one another because this woman cheated on her husband with this guy or whatever, we had to create a scapegoat. And everybody would band together. They would agree upon who the scapegoat is. They would sacrifice that scapegoat. And then for a certain amount of time afterwards, there would be peace, because people would think like, okay, we got rid of that person. Eventually,
the threat is gone.
Yeah, the threat is gone. So there can be peace. But the problem is it just keeps happening. You need a new scapegoat after a while, and the cycle continues. Eventually, humans stopped sacrificing other humans and then started doing stuff like sacrificing goats, which I think most people are pretty aware of that concept. And so we'd sacrifice farm animals, to the gods or whatever, in this idea of appeasing like kind of the gods, and really just banding the group together and unifying around the scapegoat. And yeah, we're just obsessed with doing this. And it's such an old, at least according to René Girard, who came up with this concept, who's a French philosopher. It's like one of the oldest things that banded together humans and created human societies and human civilization eventually. So it's not something that we can get rid of, really. We're like born to do this. And the only hope is recognizing that it is a thing that we do and consciously try to come up with ways to avoid it. But I mean, it just seems that the connections that we have through social media have made it so much easier to do this rapidly and frequently. Whereas in the past, without the internet, like how often are you scapegoating in your town of 1,000 people and you just hang out with like the same 12 people all the time? Like there's just no need for it. No need for it except for maybe once in a lifetime or something, if something is going really bad in your town and everybody hates the mayor, so you get rid of the mayor. You don't kill them, but everybody kicks the mayor out and now the town's okay again. But now it's like people's full-time jobs are scapegoating, it seems like.
Now, is that because of the media? Is that because like clickbait culture, they need the scapegoat because that is what, gets people to click on their articles? Or do they actually think that these people are bad at all? Or is it just like they have to make an enemy out of some random person? They have to find the scapegoat and build it up, and to get everyone to agree that this person's an evil person, they need to be deplatformed. Is this just a big marketing ploy that's gone awry and taken control?
I mean, the thing is that if nobody clicked on it, if people didn't like this, then it would go away. So I think I think about markets as emergent and not necessarily as top down. And I think that essentially what the media does is what people want, and people want this because they keep feeding into it and they participate in it. And it's not just like air quotes the media, it's your family members. Like I see people on my Facebook feed who are not members of any media and who are otherwise pretty well-adjusted human beings and members of society, who then log on to facebook.com and engage in this histrionic scapegoat mechanism as if it's the most important thing that they can do in their life. And it's what's bringing them meaning on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Like trying to get
deep.
Someone's book pulled from a store or to get Alex Jones off of YouTube. I mean, did you solve any problem? Or are their lives better? Did you really get rid of the bad guy? Or now you're bored, you got to look for a new bad guy. But it's such a dark thing that humanity, we're always going to be looking for that new scapegoat. And with the internet, I guess like you were saying, like in a small town, everything kind of moves a little bit slower. But with the internet, it's a new thing every day. There's so much information being thrown at you that the need for a scapegoat is considerably more frequent and probably growing more frequent every day.
Mm-hmm.
It does simplify things. If there's some very complex, fast-moving situation, it doesn't matter if you can pin that on one person or one organization and then focus on them. All of a sudden, this very, very nuanced, complex situation becomes, I hate X.
Right.
Let's take X down. And there's this... there's a kind of a little analysis joke that you can ask somebody what they think should be done about Russia. Think of all the people on Twitter. Just be like, oh, how should the U.S. approach relations with Russia? They're going to give you a fairly clear answer. They're going to say, it should be hostile or it should be friendly to reduce tension. They're going to have an answer though. But if you ask them like, hey, on Saturday mornings around 7, my neighbor mows with a gas mower. And God, it pisses me off because it wakes me up. What do I do? What do I do there? And those same people are going to be like, oh, that's a delicate situation. I don't know how to do. You don't want to piss off your neighbor. Like, this is really tough, and they won't be able to give you an answer. And honestly, that's somehow more difficult than like international relations with Russia.
Right.
So no, when you can simplify things down to a very clear stance or a very clear enemy, then everything gets easier. And there's a poem by, I think, Cavafy called Waiting for the Barbarians. that's about this theme. Oh, I think I've done it, Kevin, because this must have been early, like around 19 teens. I think I've pulled the timeline back.
That's in the Scapegoat video.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. CP Kavafi. Yeah.
Yeah, but the point is his poem is these politicians are discussing what to do about the barbarians, whatever, and the barbarians don't show up. And what do? They're totally purposeless and totally lost because they don't have that enemy defined and they don't have that enemy to fight. It's over for them, and it's total confusion. And I think that's the same now. If you can't say, well, Logan Paul is the worst person in the world for or showing a dead body on YouTube, or iDubbbz is the worst one for saying the N-word to Tana Mongoose, or I don't know, who is it now? The whole commentary community is built on the scapegoat mechanism, where it's who today can I call out for being a piece of shit in some way?
I got a lot of respect for those guys for being able to kind of bounce back from that. I mean, I know it seems like it's more of a game whenever it comes to the commentary community. Like they're just looking for clicks, and like they'll hate some YouTuber, some creator that you've never heard of, and now everyone's talking about it. And then the second that story kind of goes away, the person really takes that bad press and usually ends up running with it. I mean, Logan Paul and Jake Paul, they've done it so many times. I mean, I can respect Logan Paul for that. I mean, honestly, I thought that his Suicide Force video was awesome, but people kind of changed their minds to fit the narrative. It's like a faux outrage that you have to pretend like you really hate this person and for these reasons, when normally you wouldn't care, or you could laugh about the same thing. Or it's like how friends can joke about something dark, but the second an outsider says it, or a public figure says something similar, now they are the villain, and it's just like a lack of introspection, I suppose.
You know what it reminds me of is I'm going to flip this. I'm going to flip this away from outrage and to laughter. And when you go to a movie theater and you see a comedy in the theater amongst a crowd of people, you will laugh more often at that film because other people are laughing, and it becomes contagious. And this is like a well-known thing. Like the stuff that will make you laugh when you're by yourself, it's not the same as with others. And if some guy 3 rows behind you is just like cackling, I mean, there have been situations where I've been watching TV, and like I'm watching like a sporting, like a football game or whatever, and the commentators start laughing at something that I don't find funny, but they find it so funny that I start laughing, like thousands of miles away by myself on my couch. I'm laughing at a thing I don't think is funny just because it's almost like the yawning thing, where you see somebody yawn and then your mirror neurons or whatever say, hey, you should probably yawn too. I think that there's an element of that to this as well, where it's like, well, everybody else is mad, so I guess I should be mad about this too.
Yeah, and with the internet, I feel like it magnifies that effect, where you kind of, you need people around you to signify to you what you're supposed to feel, to kind of know if you're normal. That's like the healthy society. If everyone's yawning, then everyone's tired. This is probably time to go to sleep. If everyone's laughing, oh, this is a funny thing. But I feel like what a lot of people are lacking now, and I don't want to say younger generations that kind of grew up with the internet, but I have a theory that they probably are affected by this more. They don't really have an opinion or like a thought out like internal judgment system to tell them, like, is this person bad? Is this bad or is this good? And so if everyone's saying it, then they have to say, all right, this person's bad. This idea is bad. This is funny. This is not funny. But then whenever you take something like that to, say, a comedy club, where you can see a crude comedian making a lot of people laugh over something that they definitely would never admit to laughing to on, say, Twitter or Facebook, it's a really strange thing.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because the context matters. And a lot of comedians have spoken about that when someone will pull a joke out of a comedy club bit and they'll post it on Twitter out of context, and it sounds like the most horrific thing ever. Or you could just write it in a tweet and you don't actually hear the comedian perform it. You're just reading the words that he or she spoke, and all of a sudden it's the cause of, grabbing your torches and your pitchforks. And the comedian's response is always like, everyone in that room was hysterical laughing at that joke. And to pull it out of the context of the comedy club and shine a light on it it doesn't work. Like it's not fair, and you're treating it differently. And
like Bill Burr talks about that a lot, and I know Louis C.K. kind of had that issue whenever people were recording him as he was working on his act. And comedy is such a strange and unique thing where it's not funny until it's funny. So when you see a comedian working on the ideas or working through the ideas, they kind of have to cross the line sometimes, and they have to say things that aren't funny to know what isn't funny and then what people actually will laugh at. So whenever they would take Louis C.K.'s stuff out of context, a little bit out of context, I mean, it just wasn't his finished thing. It was just him at a stand-up trying to work through shot-up student jokes or something. Yeah, it doesn't translate to writing because people can just add their own intent to what they think that you were saying or trying to mean by what you're saying.
Yeah, they take it as a statement instead of as a joke, like some sort of declaration, rather than as part of a comedy bit, which has its own role in society, and that role is performed and should be contained within the context of the club. But I mean, as somebody who's making comedy online, that seems like a much harder bridge to cross, because you're putting out your particular brand of humor for anyone to see, right?
Yeah, I mean, comedy online is a strange thing in itself, in that it's hard to tell if you're actually funny, or like are things funny in the same way that they're funny whenever you see a stand-up comedian versus when you see a YouTuber doing a goofy edit. I don't think of it as the same type of humor, but you have to be a lot more clear, I guess, with what you're joking about or the setup to the joke. And yeah, someone could like clip a video down and just pull out one thing and say, look at this asshole, and look what they're joking about, but without like watching the minute before where you're leading up to why this particular thing being said should be funny. I mean, I don't particularly think of myself as really doing comedy, but when you were talking earlier, Matt, I think your question was if I am one of these scapegoats, and I feel like I've kind of successfully avoided that for the most part. I mean, Twitter doesn't like me and YouTube doesn't like me, but
TikTok doesn't like you.
Yeah, TikTok doesn't like me, but I mean, these are the authorities. But I think for the most part, I mean, it seems like people kind of really enjoy things like the family-friendly news song. And I suppose that's kind of humor in a way, because everyone knows roughly what that video is signifying, even though the video has nothing to do with suicide. It's just the impression of the noose. So I suppose that's the humor in it. But I don't know. I feel like I've kind of got lucky in that aspect. Like I haven't been canceled. I'm not sure if I can be canceled. I'd have to do something pretty bad. I don't know what that is yet.
How close have you come? How close have you come to? Well, you're right that you haven't been canceled. That's why I'm stumbling here to think how to describe this. Has there ever been a point where you've thought, maybe it's time to close up shop? How close have you come to that?
I don't think I've ever felt that, because along with everything that got criticism, it also got a lot of views and a lot of subscribers. And so I was getting a positive, I was getting a positive result out of it, along with the controversy. I mean, I remember when the Knife Game song was first blowing up, it was going through the media circuit, and there'd be like local news, like a dangerous new trend, and people emailing me, saying that they're saying they're going to sue me, or like, oh, I cut my hand off, blah, blah, blah. It just didn't really catch on like that. And I think people just saw it as like a funny gimmick. So I don't think I've had anything major that I've put out, like a video or a song or something, where I was like, oh man, that was a bad idea, and this is going to potentially ruin my quote unquote career.
People.
I want to ask a specific. Oh, sorry, Kevin. You can go on here.
I just want to piggyback because you mentioned, because this was a question that I had, was I wanted to know if people would email you saying that they like cut a finger off because of the knife song. And you said that people did contact you. So what were those emails like?
It was just people looking for attention. I mean, there's really no way to cut your finger off doing 5-finger fillet. Like, you would have to have an incredibly sharp knife and a lot of force behind it. So it was just people trying to, I don't know if they were trying to like get me riled up or potentially try to, I don't know, sue me or something. But I think they just wanted attention. Like, oh, my little brother tried your song and he cut his finger off. He had to go to the hospital. And I'm like, oh, I'm not being fooled by that. So
did you reply to these or just ignore them?
I just ignored them. There's no point.
I wanted to ask specifically about the new song, and if this is something we have to cut from the edited episode, then we can do that. I seem to remember that you got some troubling kind of messages about that. Like a mom sent you an email about a daughter, something like this. I don't recall the details that well.
How long ago was this?
Oh, God. A while, long enough for me to forget. But somebody saying, this song was an inspiration for, somebody close to me doing very bad things.
So
is there,
I think that's the
did
same
things like
thing.
that come in? Yeah. It's like a supercharged version of, I cut my finger on the knife game.
Right.
Have you ever gotten anything that you took seriously and thought like, this is real and I got to think about this?
The only thing that I can remember where I was like, this is actually something serious that kind of stuck with me was when the Parkland shooting happened. The guy who did the shooting, Nicholas Cruz, they released a police report of his internet activity leading up to the shooting. And they specifically outlined that he had watched several of my videos on the morning of the shooting. And that's something where I was like, all right, my songs aren't saying anything like go out and shoot up a school, but it was definitely a strange thing that I was in this box at least, or liked by someone who was crazy enough to do something like that. And I'm not really sure why the police report specifically outlined my videos. I mean, my theory was because my thumbnails looked gruesome, so it kind of added to the shock value of anyone reading. They'd say, oh, wow, look at that. This person was demented. But in reality, I mean, the videos that he watched were just goofy knife game songs, which I think people like for the most part because they're catchy.
Yeah, that's the knife game song especially. We'll pop links to that in the description too, because it's just, it's like the classic ditty. I think you'd actually be able to call that a ditty and not have it be weird. It's just so catchy. But he, that tie to somebody who's done an unforgivably abysmal thing. It's not real though. I mean, it's not like you make instructional videos for illegal things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if I did something like that, all right, so even the new song, the original one I had to change because I'd put it up and it got slightly popular, but at the end of the video I actually put the noose over my neck and I got that video, removed from YouTube and a channel strike and whatnot. So that was why I ended up making the family-friendly version, because I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to completely avoid any possible mention that a noose could be used for suicide and go out of my way, to emphasize that. But I still think even then, I mean, people have a macabre sense of humor and they like to joke about their own mortality. And I think that kind of helps people deal with, like, I don't know, the depressive thoughts. So I don't think anyone's watching things like the new song and then getting inspired to kill themselves.
I mean, is there
we have a whole holiday
level of responsibility
deleted to, or dedicated to that? It's called Halloween.
Really? Oh yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Is there on any level at all any responsibility for YouTubers or anybody making any kind of art? Could be a song. I mean, well, look, this is a huge deal with songs, like Metallica being blamed, Metallica and to a much lesser degree, Black Sabbath for the Robin Hood Hills murders. There were some documentaries, Paradise Lost on HBO back in the 90s, and Damien Eccles, who was one of the three teens at the time who was convicted there and is out now. It was like, oh, these kids listen to Metallica and do these devil worshipping things. Of course, they murdered these young children.
Right.
An odd connection where there's no Metallica song, by the way, for the non-connoisseurs. There's no Metallica song that tells you to kill kids. But is there any responsibility on any level for any artist?
Yeah, I'm really split on this.
What
is such
happens
a big
when
question,
people do something?
especially when it comes to like all the rock songs, like the things like Judas Priest. I think they got blamed for the guy who shot himself in a park, and Marilyn Manson got blamed for Columbine. Yeah. And yeah, if their songs are talking about stuff like that, I don't like saying they're responsible, because for the one person who does the heinous act, there are millions of other people who don't do it and maybe even find it therapeutic or get their aggression out by listening to the songs and whatnot. But sometimes I think about, and I'm split on it, because sometimes I think about like the old like gangster rap music and how much shit NWA got and all these other artists for potentially inspiring, youths to want to sell drugs or live the gang lifestyle. And, their argument was always, well, we're talking about the life that we see on a daily basis. And I 100% agree with that. But also kids are very impressionable and do want to copy, the people that they idolize. And so if you're, say, NWA and you're making songs about, gang banging someone who you grabbed off the street and, like gang banged in a van, which they did have a song about that, and or shooting people or selling drugs or anything like that. If you're not making it clear that you're acting or that this is not a reality, God, I don't know. See, I don't want to be like this type of person where it's up to the artist to tell the listener how to interpret their art. Like, I guess for the most part, I'm almost a free speech absolutist in that aspect, where I don't think it's on the artist. It's always on the listener and the person committing the crime. But I do see that people can easily be influenced by the artist and by the art.
Yeah. So part of the, I don't want to go back to this, but it is relevant. Part of the scapegoat mechanism idea has to do with mimetic desire is the term. And mimetic desire says that essentially I want what he has, or I want what she has. So you see your neighbor, it's keeping up with the Joneses in a way. You see your neighbor has a brand new Corvette and you're like, why don't I have a Corvette or something like that? And it talks about how driven human beings are by copying each other. I mean, I mentioned in the video, if you want to think about it in the most simple terms, we're so obsessed with copying each other. This is why I speak English, and this is why you speak English.
Right.
Because our parents spoke English, and everybody we know spoke English. That's why I don't speak Polish. I don't know. There was nobody to copy when I was growing up to speak Polish. So it is this weird thing where you're right. We do copy each other to the point where that can be definitely a bad thing. So I do think that there is. Look, there's a very conscious reason why I act the way that I act on Twitter. I do not engage in outrage. I don't engage in almost any negativity at all. If you look at my social media or my YouTube videos, because I just feel like there's so much negativity being put into the world that, and it's so much easier, I guess, to get attention for that negativity, which goes back to what you were talking about earlier, that it's almost harder, but it's worth it to be a person who's just making hot dog jokes, because it's like a palate cleanser when everybody's doom scrolling. And it just doesn't seem like that many people will go out of their way to avoid tossing their 2 cents into whatever like horrific end times thing, quote unquote, is going on every single day, and will just be a positive force in the universe. It seems
there's definitely a place for
a rare
wholesomeness
thing.
that there's a vacuum for it. And I think when people see wholesome content, they truly, truly appreciate it on a different level. Like they might be entertained and caught up in controversy and negativity, but that's just like our instincts, telling us this is the bad guy or this is danger, blah, blah, blah. Because that's more important to know than, a bunny doing a backflip or something. And I guess I was thinking, I made some videos a few years back where I would kind of just very harshly criticize other YouTubers. I always had a reason for it, but I'd be mocking them a lot. And later I was thinking, man, I think that person's probably like only 16 or some shit. And I'm just harassing them because I think it's funny. But then other people watching, younger kids watching, they might also just want to harass them or think that that's a cool thing to do, bullying, even though I do think this person deserved it. It's something that later on I was like, I don't really want to make content that's too critical of other YouTubers and other creators, because if it doesn't personally affect me or it has no negative, their actions have no negative consequences on my own life, then it's really not up to me to try to tear them down. And that's why I have a real problem with a lot of the commentary community, because it's just going after people for the sake of going after people, and it works. Is the unfortunate thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you do commentary, there's always got to be a topic, and look, most of the time there's kind of behavior to put on display in a video at any given time because there's just so many people on the platform. But occasionally you see a situation where kind of all the good topics have been taken for the moment, but you can't go too long without releasing another video on your channel, and you see people choose a real fringe topic in terms of importance, and it does put them on the hot seat. And is there a real point to it with some of those? Not really, no.
Yeah, is there a message to be had by making endless videos about, I don't know, who's the hot topic now? Is it Dream and Corpse Husband? Or like, I know these guys are constantly trending for something or another. I don't know if people are making videos about them, but it gets tiring too, because I think people see the pettiness of it. It really does come off petty when you see like 100 people just trying to really pick apart every single thing that another content creator does to bring them blame and fault. And really, the things that they're doing is nothing crazy for just being a human who makes normal mistakes, or like say they said something in their video, or they had a tweet that's slightly controversial or whatever. It's like that's normal. Everyone is doing that, and it shouldn't be blown up to the extent that it is.
Can I ask you more about your theory about the younger generation growing up with the internet having a harder time kind of developing and discerning and analyzing situations and coming up with their own judgments? Is this something that you've thought about a lot? Because that's never crossed my mind before, and I find it very interesting.
Yeah, a few years back when when the knife game was first blowing up, so this is like 7 years ago at this point, I remember there was this mother in Germany who would email me, and she was asking, my kids now are 8. I don't know how to introduce them to the internet. And what I think is happening now is that since these kids aren't really socializing in the same way that we socialized in human IRL, and they never got exposed to like the real life consequences of bullying someone, or any emotion that comes with having to deal with other kids and growing up and all the mistakes you make. I don't think that they actually internalize any of those lessons, and so they really are lacking in. Maybe I should think about this more. I feel like they're lacking in the understanding of how they should feel about things, or how they should treat other people, or how they should react to specific situations, because they've never actually had to do it in a realm that they would be real life affected. And so they learn it from the internet, and they see how people act on Twitter, and they think this is normal, and it's really chaotic. So I also, I'm not even sure if this is true. I'm sure there's statistics out there that could prove this wrong, but I think like autism rates are going up because all the younger generations growing up on the internet, and it's a similar thing. They're not being conditioned in a healthy and normal environment that humans were kind of conditioned in for the past, whatever, 200,000 years.
Yeah, I don't know how that it relates. I have no idea how that relates to autism, but Matt and I have talked a lot, not on the podcast.
I just want to say autism. I mean like with like Asperger's, people have a hard time understanding emotions or facial expressions or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering
the spectrum broadly the spectrum.
Yeah. I'm not a doctor. I'm not studied in the matter.
Yeah, no, me either. I have no idea. But what I do know, and Matt and I have talked about a bit, just privately, it has to do more about social norms and like being well adjusted versus being maladjusted, and that is something that I have noticed a lot. Where something that should be, it's hard to come up with a specific example, and I know it's annoying to talk about something without being specific, but it's kind of like what you're alluding to, Rusty, where it's like something that really shouldn't be a big deal becomes a really big deal because these people have never encountered things in the real world before. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is how you overreact to something that's just literally normal.
Well, like cyberbullying, for instance. Now the science seems like it's coming out, and it's the way that younger people interact with each other is a lot more important than I think a lot of people gave it credit for. But I remember when cyberbullying was kind of getting popular as a term, the older generation response was like, how is this even a problem? Just turn your computer off, go outside. You can just completely ignore people online who are, harassing you or whatever. And I don't know if that's because we've already grown out of the stage where acceptance from peers and that kind of bullying aspect can really shape us, and they're having to figure it out online, and it's so much easier to dogpile in on a cyberbullying campaign whenever it's a faceless entity. But unless you've seen something like that in real life, or you've seen someone get bullied to the point where they're breaking, you don't really want to do that. You don't want to hurt someone. But if you don't even consider them people because they're just an avatar and a username, it's easy to do. And I think that is maybe an example that's how a younger generation's being conditioned, is not to look at people as people, but to look at them as just an avatar without really considering that there is a person behind the computer.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely true. That's a major driving force on everything, is experiencing reality around it. There have been some political things in the last year, on both sides. It's a neutral kind of thing where a bunch of people look at it and it's like, oh, this is signaling the end of the world. And I'm thinking, do you remember what kind of utter shit morning some of us had on 9/11?
Right.
That was bad. Like that was really terrible. There was a kid on my floor in college screaming his head off because his father worked in the World Trade Center and all the phones were jammed. None of us had cell phone. Well, like one or two of us had cell phones. It was before that era where everybody had one. And so all these landlines were trying to call New York, and it just overloaded the system. So everybody was in the dark. And I had so many friends from Queens especially, whose parents worked in Manhattan, and the information sucked. And oh boy, that was a really bad day for you people who were born after 2001. Let me tell you, it was shit. It was really awful.
Right.
The dumb things that have happened in the last year. Like, look, a Walmart getting burned down and looted or something like that is a very bad thing, but it's not 9/11. This is not the end of society as we know it. We'll be able to sort this one out, but you have to have that perspective. And I understand why they don't have that perspective. Things have been relatively good for a while. Kevin and I had friends who went into the military shortly, like months before 9/11 happened. And all of a sudden we had friends who were deploying to war. Well, as shitty as things have been in the last like 4 or 5 years or 10 years or whatever, that hasn't happened a lot.
Right. Well,
it just hasn't.
When you have everyone from all directions telling you that it's the end of the world, it takes a strong constitution to, I don't know, not to fall into that trap and actually start believing it. Because the second some people start believing it, some people in your community, your peers and whatnot, they start saying, wow, this is really bad. This is the end of the world. You can't really be the person that's like, no, everything's fine. This is all cool, because then you're a part of the problem because you're ignoring the problem. And they have like those rules that force you to have to agree that this is the end of the world, that this is the enemy, that all these situations are a lot more dramatic than they are. I mean, even, I don't want to talk about I don't know about current events or whatever, but like the Capitol riots, they were comparing that to 9/11. And I was like, I don't see that at all. I have no idea what they're talking about. But I know people who would agree with it.
Not the same thing.
Yeah, they're two different ballparks.
A completely and wholly different experience.
Right. So I don't know if it plays into as well some sort of like the victimhood awards that you get. You get credit for being a victim. And so if you don't feel like it's the end of the world and you're not really bothered by what's going on, that definitely sets you aside from everyone else. The whether they're the vocal, loud minority, or if it's growing larger than that, and a majority of the people think that the country's going to hell quickly, which it might be. I'm not going to say that possible. It isn't, but I don't know. I think people really need to just turn the internet off and go outside and talk to people in their community and go to a grocery store. Well, maybe not right now, but I'm not telling everyone to go out during a fucking pandemic, but go outside and talk to people.
Yeah. That was a point that I had brought up on an earlier podcast, where it's like you go on, you have a family reunion and you talk to, your uncle, and you just talk about the sports. You just talk about, hey, how are the Jets doing or whatever? Oh yeah. Oh, how's work? Okay, that's good. And but meanwhile, like conversely, you go on Facebook and your uncle, your aunt, or whoever it is, all they're doing is just ripping on like Monsanto is poisoning the earth. Like whatever cause, whatever cause is their cause that they have to like wave the flag for, carry the banner for. It's like they are this, ideologically possessed zombie almost online, rather than being, your Uncle Dave. How
this is
weird
why I
is
stopped
that?
using Facebook. I've been clean for probably 15 months, give or take. I don't want to say it's 18.
Oh, wow.
But well over a year. Yeah. I mean, I check in on a couple people. I use Facebook Messenger to talk to a couple friends, because that's just the only way I can talk to them.
Right.
But I don't use the site anymore, and it's because of what both of you are saying, that all of these people were just not who I knew. I knew them from going to school with them and watching their careers develop over 20 years. And, of course, the family side, family's family, and you see all of their stuff all the time, and then I just see somebody who is going bonkers about something that,
oh, it's crazy. It's so
care.
Unhealthy and crazy, because sometimes you'll see how people are acting on Facebook, and they'll be so vicious, and you can see the same person in real life, like the next day, and they're not that person. They're a lot more cordial and understanding, because they can actually talk to you and have a conversation and hear your tone of voice and experience where you're coming from. And it's not just trying to be right or get a lot of likes. And what I think it is, and why people act that way on Facebook and Twitter, is just because you get likes, and that gives you the serotonin. So what gets you more likes is saying either the thing that a majority of people in your Facebook circle are going to agree with, like by attacking whoever the person you're supposed to attack that day is, or saying whatever, virtue signaling, like how brave everyone is on Facebook. I am against Nazis. You get 40 likes. I was like, no shit, you are. But that's what you have to do. So I think that system, the liking system, is kind of what pushes them to talk so extreme online.
I thought of an example of that I hope is more or less innocuous of what you were talking about earlier, Rusty, of people just forgetting about an enemy, and that's GMOs. Do you guys remember how insane people were over GMOs?
Yeah.
Like genetically modified foods. Yeah. It was enemy number one on social media about 5 years ago, maybe? I don't know.
I think it was more like 2012-ish.
Yeah, I remember it being a while.
Was it that long ago? Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm worse at history than you.
That's
you
because
are,
you
Matt.
eat genetically modified foods.
I
and
know.
Your brain is turning to mush.
That golden rice wiped out my.
It all ties back to Monsanto.
But man, it was nonstop. That was it. It was GMOs are going to be the end of the world. I do not remember the last time I saw anybody even mention the letters GM or O. In that succession. It's just, we're done with that. I thought that was the end of the world, guys. What happened?
Are people still protesting BP, or have they completely forgotten about that as well? I mean, I think they rebranded.
I haven't heard a whole lot about. Yeah, I haven't heard anything where oil and energy are like the number one threat. I mean, I understand that there have been some pressing topics in the last year that have overshadowed it, but even before 2020, it had waned completely, and it's a very strange thing when, like Kevin says, this is the foundational threat to humanity, and we have to pay attention to this right now until a year later. And it's like, what happened to that? It's like all the people playing Farmville, and then all of a sudden nobody plays Farmville anymore.
Right.
It's the same kind of like this is everywhere, and then all of a sudden nobody does it.
Right. It's apocalyptic Farmville.
And what sucks is when you remember that, when you remember how riled up everyone was, and then it seems like they don't remember it makes you feel like you're insane sometimes. Like how am I remembering? I mean, not to be political, but like, how am I remembering the Russian collusion in the election and all those conspiracy theories, and then now everyone just forgets about it? That there's now that they're trying to say there's conspiracy theories about meddling in this election, and it's like the same people saying that's a fringe conspiracy theory, it's dangerous, blah blah blah. They're the same people that were agreeing with Russian collusion 4 years ago, and I don't really know what's true or what's not in that aspect, but I just know that it's very disingenuous that how quickly people choose to forget what they were diehard about just 4 years ago. Because it's convenient, I suppose. I think convenience is a big cause of all of this.
Right.
And there's no accountability for it either. Right. Especially on social media, because if you're remotely active, anything you say is pushed down the timeline pretty quickly. And it's got to, you really have to work on an issue for it to stick around on your profile for any length of time. So there's no real accountability. And I've seen lots of situations where somebody, pulls the comment cop kind of thing and screenshots a post from a year ago where the person is saying something completely contradictory. Well, then the target of that, gets annoyed and blocks them. So they never really have to face the consequences for any of it. They don't have any incentive to be logically or factually consistent. It's a system that rewards pretty much everything we don't want to happen.
I went back and I took some screenshots. This was before the BLM protests / riots or whatever that were going on, and right after the anti-lockdown protests that were going on before. Mm-hmm. And I took some screenshots that friends had posted, and they were saying things like, I hope all these protesters die for risking everyone's life during a pandemic, but they didn't really specify. And then I would show other friends later after the Black Lives Matter ones and say, what do you think they meant by this? Because now they're in full support of protest. And it's like, do they actually support the protests, or are they just so ideologically driven that their principles flip on a dime in order to agree with another one of their principles, if that makes sense?
How do you change that? How can anything be done to improve that?
I don't know. I mean, maybe taking away likes is actually a good thing. Maybe people wouldn't agree. If you see a YouTube video and it has very, very, very low likes versus dislikes, you probably are going into that video thinking it's going to be bad. And I think if you take away the liking system, say on Facebook, this is just me, I'm working this out in my head. If you take away the liking system and people aren't rewarded for saying specific things, then they might speak more honestly, or maybe not. But I don't know. I mean, people just need to be a lot more honest about what they're saying and what the opinions they're sharing. And, you can't call them out on their lies, or else you're really kind of wasting time, especially on Facebook. If you're spending a lot of time getting in arguments, it's not really productive. So yeah, how do you change their mind, or how do you bring both sides closer together? I suppose that's the question everyone's asking, because it's probably the most split I've seen in my life, like ideologically split.
I think taking likes away is an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't think we've ever talked about that on this podcast before, but it's definitely because the other thing that at like a top level we all have to realize is how new all of this is.
Right.
This is all brand new. It's not even in its infancy. This is all like embryonic. So if it turns out that having likes on all of this social media is making us want to be at each other's throats, then perhaps we will figure out that we should take that away and things will, calm down a bit. That's totally possible. And I think on the table, it should at least be considered.
For sure. Like, I mean, the thing is, we all like likes. I mean, I don't think anyone doesn't like tweeting something and getting a lot of retweets and likes, but is that actually good for us? Or is it like heroin? People probably like heroin whenever they do heroin, but it's bad for you in the end. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't really thought about it too much before, but it might actually make sense to take away likes on certain systems like Facebook and Twitter. I feel like you probably need it on YouTube, just as a general gauge of whether or not you're about to, waste 5 minutes on something that leads to no positive ending or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I want to plug a video by a friend of the Create Unknown, Sean Malone, who was a guest quite some time ago, and we'll probably have him back real soon. He did a two-part video series on The Social Dilemma, a documentary about all of the stuff we're talking about. And he titled it, The Social Dilemma is Dangerously Wrong. And it's each video is about 30 minutes. It's very, very good on the Out of Frame channel. And there is truth that dopamine receptors go, ding, ding when certain things happen on social media, and that affects our behavior. But it's more nuanced than a lot of the scary things like the parents groups and teachers unions and stuff tend to say that it's going to just melt your brain. I mean, I know so many people who use social media profitably. And I don't mean that literally with money. I mean in a way that improves their lives.
Right.
It makes their work better. They get a better understanding of things. They have international networks of people. We have, like right now in the episode chat, we have Glink and Slush as well, who, Glink is Armenian and just put out a video about his identity. It's very good. You should check that out. But some problems in Armenia of late, and it's really easy to follow along and empathize with certain people and understand what their lives are like as they're going through an extremely difficult time. This is great. This is amazing to be able to do that. That overshadows to me any any negative of the willful misuse of somebody sitting there and spending 4 hours freaking out about politics because it jingles the right part of their brain wiring.
Now you say that it overshadows it, but are the positive benefits, are the people who are utilizing social media in a beneficial and positive way, are there more of them than the people who are using it and receiving a negative effect. Or like,
I don't know. I feel the same way about that as I feel about fast food. Like I'm a responsible Burger King user.
mm-hmm.
Like I love 10 nuggets for $1.49, the spicy ones. Like this is one of the best values ever. And I know that in the past, we talked about the calories per dollar in a McDonald's double cheeseburger on the dollar menu being like the peak contribution to humanity in terms of food. I really believe this. I'm not in terrible health. I use these places responsibly. The fact that a whole lot of other people don't can't be my problem. It just isn't my problem. And if 80% of people are misusing fast food and destroying their health, then that's on them. That's on them. And I'm really not going to change anything that I do to cater to, I don't want to say it's like some weakness. Some people are truly weak in terms of social media and are drawn in.
I agree. I think the majority of people behaviors.
What percentage do you think, like, you really think it's that high, like majority level?
I would like, I think that there's two tiers. I think there are the people who are very, very susceptible, and they're the ones that want to be accepted by the majority. And so they kind of, silence themselves, or they don't really go they don't stick their necks out online. I was just a guess. I'd say like 75% of people are they'll just, read the headlines, not read the article, because it doesn't really matter what's in the article. It just matters what it says and what message that sends you. And in the sense of food, everyone's in charge of their own dietary restrictions. But when you have something like how social media can heavily influence politics or social reform, then it can be very dangerous. And, hasn't Facebook been responsible for genocides just on building mass hysteria over Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah. There are also unseen costs, societal costs, that do affect all of us when it comes to, those people who take advantage of things. I mean, even when it comes to things like Burger King, like the health costs that we have to pay. But it goes back to smoking and everything. But I agree with you, Rusty, that if the foundational way that we're interacting with each other is on these social media platforms, then to me that it makes it a lot more important that we get it right. And I don't know what that means.
I think there's still time to pull it back. I mean, like you were saying, the internet's very new and it's going in wild directions. It changes every 2 to 5 years. It seems like it's completely different than it was before. And so, we're still in the learning period on how we have to learn to interact with each other. Who knows? The next generation might be a lot more comfortable being more honest and not being fearful of saying the wrong thing online. And if that becomes a comfortable norm, then you're kind of sinking back into a more healthy form of communication.
I don't see how it gets better.
Yeah. I mean, I'm being optimistic.
Like radical changes. It just seems like it's getting worse.
Yeah. I'd like to think it's just going to be so ingrained in society. There, I said society for everyone in the chat, but it's so ingrained in society that that it's not going to be like getting canceled is going to just kind of become numb, and it's not going to be a career ending or like life ending for some people. It's just going to be like, oh, I got canceled today, or whatever. Like someone dug up some old tweets of mine. You're going to be able to do that with everyone. And I mean, essentially you already can, but I feel like it's going to lose power the more it becomes just ingrained in our culture.
Like the novelty of it will wear off.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's what I mean by like when it's so new right now that there still is novelty to canceling people and to deplatforming people, but at a certain point it's just going to seem so ridiculous, I hope.
Yeah. When everyone's canceled, nobody is canceled.
Right. So that's what my hope is, that everyone gets deplatformed and canceled.
Now that is utopia.
Yeah,
truly, we utopia. Can all wish for that. I know we have a ton of questions. Before we get into the questions, though, I really want to ask you about your comic, because we literally haven't even talked about your comic yet. So Requiem of the Crazies. I have the first two. I'm eagerly awaiting number 3. I just wanted to ask in like a very high level way, like what made you start doing comics? What made you start doing this comic? Like what was the genesis of Requiem of the Crazies?
I think when I was younger, art was probably the first kind of creative outlet that I got into, like drawing and whatnot. And I always loved comic books growing up, but I wanted to make comics when I was younger, and I kind of made some, but they weren't very good. And then as I got older, I just slipped into doing music, and then that kind of took off on YouTube. So that really just took over, majority of my time and energy. But finally, YouTube has been a blessing, and it's allowed me to, work for myself and move on to other ventures. And so I wanted to go back to comic books and give it another shot, because it's a different form of writing. Like it's long form writing, and that's something that's kind of been lacking in my creative outlet, like rather than just writing songs or something which are just a few minutes long. So I don't know. I mean, it was definitely ambitious because I don't really have too much experience making comics, but I am very passionate about it. Like it's something that I want to finish this project, and I want to end it and make the full thing just the best I can. I don't know. I guess I get bored if I'm just doing the same thing. Like I don't know how these musicians are still touring, like still playing the same songs for 40 years, like the Rolling Stones or something. Like you'd think that you just want to do something else eventually. And for me, comic books is what it is right now, or at least this series. I'm not sure if I'll be as motivated to continue making graphic novels or comics after I'm done with it, but we'll see.
No, I think about that a lot. I'm glad that you brought that up. Of like, yeah, bands just playing the same song for like the 9,000th time. I mean, I guess a lot of them are getting paid very well to do it, but not all of them are.
Well, even making that money, like, I mean, how much more money do they need when you're 75?
Right. Yeah, like the Stones, like Mick Jagger, you still can't get no satisfaction, dude.
Well, they probably
have
really
everything.
they probably really like doing cocaine and having sex with young groupies. But also the passion for music, I'm sure, is still, a burning fire in their core.
Playing that song for 60 years, though, man.
Right.
Good Lord.
Oh, and they have
crazy.
It so perfect. There's not a single note that's off. There's no twisting it up or different versions of it. It's just mechanical. It seems like that would be like going to work at that point.
Yeah, they're not the Grateful Dead, like jamming out on
right
on whatever. But yeah, the money thing too, I always wonder about as well, especially like as a creative person. I feel like as long as the bills are paid and like I can afford food, that seems like enough. But it is odd to me, creative people like, the Rolling Stones or Bruce Springsteen or whatever. I mean, I guess if they have insane ambitions outside of music where they're going to fund their own like newspaper or something,
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea, their own social media app, and they need $400 million, then more power to them. But they're not doing that. So what are they doing? Like what does Bruce Springsteen do with his like $900 million from touring his whole life?
Well, that might be
weird to me.
That might be an aspect of human nature, just to never feel like you're done or you never have enough. I remember when Howard Stern sold, or what did he do? Whenever he moved to Sirius or whatever, and he got, I forget how much it was at the time, like $500 million or something. A lot of his employees were complaining, that they're not really getting paid anything at all. And I remember saying something along the lines of like, well, I still have to pay for, my kids' college and whatnot. And I'm like, well, you have $500 million. You can pay for everyone's college. You'll be fine.
Yeah, is your kid going to college on the moon?
Yeah.
Where's he going to college?
Kevin, who is the basketball player who choked PJ Carlesimo?
Latrell Sprewell?
Latrell Sprewell, yeah. He had a thing where I remember him saying on a contract that he needed to feed his family.
Yeah.
And Latrell Sprewell was making, at that point, like probably $8 million a year.
It's like, if you're talking, that doesn't make any sense to, it makes sense to a normal person. You go, okay, yeah, feed your family, put your kids in college. Sure, but you do not need that much money. I'm not going to say they don't need it, because they could be doing anything with it. But at a certain point, how do you possibly even spend all that money? You'd have to be like Elon Musk or something, where you're putting it right back into very, very expensive other ventures.
Yeah, you're building rockets.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing with it. Yeah, so maybe the Stones were right, and you just, we can't get no satisfaction.
You can't get no satisfaction. They figured it out, and now they're living in their own hell.
Wrinkly hell. Matt, do you want to start doing questions?
I do. And one of the reasons we talked about a lot about kind of general issues and non-specific things that you've done is because the questions are really heavy on some of your specific things. And so we wanted to give everybody in the episode chat now a chance at kind of poking and prodding you about all things Cage. First one here is from Slush, which we had a great episode with Slush and Glink, and check out his channel. What's an album you really love?
Bone Machine by Tom Waits is definitely up there. This was a very experimental album. If you're familiar with Tom Waits, he's an experimental person who's kind of transitioned into a lot of different genres of music. But Bone Machine was like post-apocalyptic themed, and it's just a really dirty sounding album. They recorded it in like a stone cellar of the studio next to a water heater just because it had grimy reverb. And overall, the mood of the album, it makes you just feel like you're by a burning truck in some Mad Max world, and there's blind, crazy people dancing to some prophet's prayer for death. And I don't know, that's a great album. To definitely listen to that. Another one, I guess I really like Downward Spiral by Nine Inch Nails. I got into Nine Inch Nails when I was 24, which is a little bit late, but big.
That was kind of late in the game. Yeah,
big fan of Downward Spiral, their second album, I think.
That's kind of awesome, though. There are some bands that are like obvious bands that you should have listened to when you were 14.
Right.
That, it's kind of a fun thing where you're like, wow, I'm 33 and just starting to listen to whatever. I don't know. But for 1 second, this is a non sequitur, but it popped in my brain. Matt, the fact that you remembered the name PJ Carlissimo, but you forgot Latrell Sprewell is very funny.
I couldn't remember Sprewell. Yeah. It was so weird that I could picture Carlissimo being like a kind of skinny, weird loser complaining about getting choked. But I couldn't. And I knew Sprewell's cornrows, because he was so famous for wearing cornrows at that time, but I could not come up with his name.
Yeah, no, it's just funny the way that the human mind works and the way that memory works. Like, to remember PJ Carlissimo but not Latrell Sprewell is so funny to me, because it's like 99 out of 100 people are not coming up with PJ Carlissimo. They're saying,
that's really
who is the coach that Latrell Sprewell choked?
These all sound like made up names.
It's so much more obscure. It's so much more obscure, though. Like if somebody said, "Oh, who is the guy that Monica Lewinsky got in trouble with?" You'd think it was insane, right?
Yeah.
But Monica Lewinsky was a household name. PJ Carlissimo, I don't even know if he worked after the Timberwolves. I guess he's a broadcaster on CSN New England now.
There you go.
This is a good one. This is from the Grinning Reaper, who, thank you for becoming a patron today. This is one of the better decisions in your life. Wants to know, Rusty, what your cat's name is, because the Big Rock Candy Mountain video was really cute.
My cat's name is Carter. It's a female cat. I didn't name her. My old roommates were huge fans of Lil Wayne, the Carter 3 album. So they named their cat Carter. And then we got evicted from the house, and they left the cat behind with its 5 brand new kittens. And so I had to adopt them about 11 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you kind of you kind of have to man up and take
It
responsibility.
was either
in that scenario,
or put
don't
them in
you?
a bag and throw them in a river and hope that they washed ashore
that's
and
bad.
met up with Tom and Jerry later.
Yeah. The odds against that would have been long.
Yeah, definitely.
Grinning Reaper had another question that I think is good. I really like asking people who do a thing about the things they like in that thing. So Reaper asks, what your favorite song, what's the favorite song that you made?
Probably We're the Gang Stalkers. It was on my last album. I think it's either the last song or the first song, I forget, but it was the last song that I wrote for the album. It's always like the ones that I don't take a lot of time to write and record that I end up liking the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh shit, I just need like a filler track. So I thought of it on the bus, just riding the bus home, and recorded it. And it seemed to have a pretty large impact if you're familiar with gang stalking, where, people think that the government agents are following them around and spying on them in one instance. It got a lot of feedback from the gang stalking community because in the song itself, I'm playing the role of someone who is one of these government agents and just talking about how we like to go around and harass people and, kill them and erase any records of their existence, playing into their fears. Oh, shit. Kind of going back to what we were talking about with bands being responsible for the actions of their audience. That might be something where I could say, if someone did something crazy after listening to that song because it triggered their paranoia, it'd probably be my fault.
Yeah, you think it's most likely to make something like that happen out of any of your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get a lot of emails from people who are like paranoid schizophrenics, and they write long, crazy emails, and it's usually gang stalking related. I was thinking about making a song at some point where I just find one real person, say in just some other state like Kentucky, some guy named Josh Gaddens, and I look into his life on Facebook and I figure out his interests, and then I write a song specifically about him, and then tell maybe tell him to do something, not like shoot up a school or anything, but if you could find a crazy person, all of their paranoia would be justified. And if anyone listened to their pleas, they would probably agree with them. It would kind of drive several people crazy because they say, holy shit, this song is about you. Why did this person make a song specifically about you? And you're just a random person.
What if it was really benevolent, like donate to a food bank?
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, right. I could use this idea and do something positive with it.
So in 2021, later in the year, we can expect the Bob Jenkins "Please Cure Cancer" song.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't do it, then a lot of people are going to have an issue with Bob Jenkins.
Bob Jenkins, open a soup kitchen.
Well, shit, I have to. I mean, I am Bob Jenkins.
I got to learn how to make a lot of soup
really quickly.
There's another song question here that I really love. This is from Speen. He's one of our resident musicians and producers. He asks, what would your set list be if you were given a 30-minute music set? And I love this because you've done some very good covers. You posted a bunch back in the day, and yes, your songs are great. That's awesome. But you capably bang on a whole lot of classics too. And so I wonder if this set is going to be a mix of originals and covers.
Yeah, it would have to be. And the thing about like playing a set, especially with a lot of the music that I make, it's a lot of instruments compounded over each other and layered. So some of them are very difficult to play, and I can't actually even perform them because I can only do one thing at a time, like sing or play whatever strange bass riff. So it had to be probably more acoustic guitar based. I don't know. I would do should I name specific songs, or is anyone going to even know this?
Yeah, throw a few out.
Songs like Adipocere, We're the Gang Stalkers, probably more guitar based songs. The Final Voyage of the Whalers Essex, and yeah, definitely a lot of old cover songs. Probably some more obscure ones if I could find them. I don't really I try not to do covers that are overdone. I mean, I really don't do that many cover songs these days, but just songs that are always stuck in my head. Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And if I could learn Spanish, I would learn a version of Malagueña Salarosa. And I'm not really sure how to fill a 30-minute spot, but that's about like 5-6 songs.
30 minutes a long time.
Yeah. It'd be cool to get a band and then do something like a heavier song, or like one of the hip hop ones, like The Lives of Flies. I think that would be a crowd pleaser.
And you haven't gone the band route, have you?
I played in a few bands, but I played keyboards, so I was in the back. No one really cared about me. If I messed up, it didn't really matter too much. Something about, like, I have terrible stage fright, so being a singer would terrify me, because you can mess up a lick on a guitar and get away with it, but it's hard to mess up a word totally. If you have like a very vocal based song, because people know that's not how you say that word, or you forget the line and then you have to repeat yourself. You have to really think on your toes like that, or be comfortable with it. And I don't know. I feel like I would mess up a lot if I was playing live. That's kind of why I avoid it. And also, it's such a pain in the ass having to practice and lug equipment around and deal with booking and whatnot. It's not really fun, in my opinion.
Logistics are a full-time job on that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
They? That's why I stopped pursuing music, is literally that reason. Really? Like the idea of doing open mics and then eventually getting gigs, and like having the band, and you got to get a van and you got to lug all your amps around and stuff. Like, it's exhausting. I'm very tired. I'm a very tired person, and I just don't have the energy for that. It's amazing. I think you almost have to have at least one manic person, I think, in a band. Oh, absolutely.
No, there has to be a band leader
who will do all of that stuff. You could have the other people be depressive, or like one person be depressive, but maybe the rest of the band has to be manic. But it's so much work.
Yeah,
so much
energy.
It
has to be the drummer. Like, someone has to call the shots, because especially if you have, say, 5 people, 6 people in a band or whatever, everyone can't just do whatever they want. They can't go off in their own direction, or else you have just a really messy composition of a song. So someone, or like a team of people, maybe 2 people, they have to say this goes, this does not, and make the final decision and do the booking. And that was what was good about being a keyboard player. I wasn't really an important member in the band, in the sense that if keyboard wasn't in a lot of these songs, they could figure out how to fill in that spot with another guitar riff. And I like that lack of responsibility. But at the same time, man, just going to practice and all the bickering that goes on, and it's such a slow process that I was like, man, I should just go home and record my own songs. It'd be a lot more fun.
Yeah, you cannot have a depressed drummer, because lugging your drum kit around and setting it up and breaking it down, that's the most annoying thing. It's like Johnny the depressed drummer would almost be a really funny character.
Just constantly it probably show's over, time to tear your set down and put it all back in your van.
Just fails.
Yeah, can you imagine the people?
The guy from Def Leppard did it with one arm. What are you complaining about?
Oh, he had a roadie, though.
That must be the most positive person on the planet, the Def Leppard guy. He had one arm and he still drummed.
By the time he was in that accident, I think his career was somewhat advanced, so he wouldn't have been entirely dependent on lugging his own.
Well, you know what he said? He said, I'd give my left arm to play guitar.
You're right. Def Leppard definitely had roadies by then. That's important.
Can you imagine playing the double bass, like picking that instrument in your youth, and then you have this giant double bass that doesn't fit in anything? Like, that would be hell. Why didn't I pick the violin?
I remember this in school when people had to take their instruments on the bus and walk them between the schools to practice and things like that. You know, in like, you always look at, I don't know why, but it was almost all girls who played flute and clarinet. And you look at them, they throw a flute in like the smallest pocket of their backpack and skip away. And then, you know, some boner in the back has a tenor sax that's like 3 times bigger than him.
You have to completely disassemble it. It takes 15 minutes. Someone's playing the contrabass, like giant tuba.
Oboe.
Let's go on. I'm trying to order these here. Here's a quickie from the Kino Corner, who I believe is an IRL friend of yours. Is that right?
Yeah, I know him. Yeah, I know Kino.
Yeah, Kino's amazing. This is real quick. Whiskey of choice.
A Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, why is that?
Oh, it doesn't make me sick, and I think it tastes pretty good. Like I can drink it straight without feeling disgust. And
what does make you sick? Like I want the contrast
Evan Williams. Here. This could all be in my head, but I feel like when I drink Evan Williams, I have to puke by the end of the night or the next morning. I don't really know how any of this shit works. Like, really, there might not be too great of differences between them. It could all be in my head, but that's just whatever my first experience with the liquors are is usually what ends up lingering throughout the years.
That's fair. Kevin, wasn't there a whiskey that you really liked a couple years ago that was your staple? I remember you telling me about being able to get it all of a sudden.
I've switched it up a lot. Yeah.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've switched it up a lot. So, I don't know. There's when it comes to bourbon, I can't think of any bourbon I've ever had where I was like, I really think this is disgusting. What you're talking about, Rusty, I have with entire categories of liquor, like vodka. Like I know that for most people, vodka is like the most flavorless, generic, like easy to drink.
Right.
A liquor I can't, because when I was I don't know, pretty young. When I was pretty young, I drank a lot of vodka and I blacked out and I threw up all over the place. So I never was able to drink vodka ever again.
When I think of vodka,
so I
think of those liters of Skull that I would just get in high school, just like the cheapest $10 giant plastic bottle of vodka. And it take me a while to come back around to vodka, but I mean, I'm not a snob. I'll drink anything besides like a horse cum.
Yeah. Well, I suppose anything can be fermented, right?
Exactly.
This is from Elevensies. We talked about this a little bit, but this is a distinctly different kind of question. Do you have any regrets about any of the videos that you've posted?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of regrets on older videos that just really weren't funny or they make me cringe. Most of them I've unlisted or deleted. There's always things in every video that I would do different that just watching back on, I feel like the mood wasn't, the mood I was trying to create wasn't really executed properly, or I don't know. I try not to look back on too many of my old videos and just kind of take them for what they were and try to learn from them and what you can do differently. But yeah, there's definitely like some corny comedy skits that I tried to do 5 years ago, and I have no idea why I made it. I think I was bored and I just wanted to put out a quick video, or I was trying to tap into like the comedy genre, and I realized pretty quickly that I'm not much of a comedian.
Knife Game was 2013. When did you start uploading again?
I started uploading in 2008, I think. It was right out of high school.
Wow.
Yeah, no, early on. So YouTube was still new, and I was just using it as an outlet to upload cover songs because I didn't really know where to put them, and I didn't want to attach my name to it or my face to it. So I just wanted to throw it out into the void where no one would know who I am and see how they were received. And I think I deleted my old channel, so I have a new one now. That the one I'm using now I started in 2009. So it's been a while.
Okay.
I didn't really use YouTube though as like pursuing a job or anything for like 4 or 5 years. I think it was like 2014 that I actually started trying to take it somewhat seriously.
And Elevensies tacked another one onto that. Do you care about the people who dislike your humor? I mean, we talked about that earlier too, but on any level, does it kind of get to you when you're criticized?
Only not online. Online, it doesn't bother me at all because you can just kind of weigh the pros and cons. And if there's a lot more support than, criticism, it doesn't bother me. Also, I just don't read comments or anything like that. But in real life, yeah, people don't know the character. I'm not really that I'm playing a character, but people don't understand like the world of which I'm releasing these videos, and so it can come off really crude to someone who's not familiar with my channel if they for the first time see, the Noose song, and they just think that I'm just mocking suicide or whatever, which I guess I am, but not with like the ill intent that they might think. If they're familiar with my other videos, then it doesn't seem so crazy or out of place.
Is this friends or family or what?
Family doesn't really seem, they don't really care because they know me and I've always had like a dark sense of humor. But yeah, like if my IRL community or peers were to go through my Twitter and like read everything that I tweeted, they would probably think I'm a fucking monster, just because they wouldn't understand, necessarily what I'm trying to do. But I don't know. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but it's harder to explain to them the context of what I'm doing, I suppose, unless they're already very familiar with it. And most of them do not care at all about what I do online.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, because I tried once, and I'll never try this again, to do one of my Twitter jokes on Facebook. Oh, okay. And that was received really weirdly because I don't use Facebook. The only people I have on Facebook are friends and family. Mm-hmm. So I don't have like a public facing Facebook or anything. And I wish I could remember what joke it was. It was something about apples, and all of the replies were taking it very literally. And it was obvious to me, and it was obvious to people who follow me on Twitter that I'm just being an idiot. Mm-hmm. But when I tried to be that idiot, which on Facebook, it was like, I don't know why you said this about, these apples really are not really good for pies. I don't remember what it was, but it was like a very, very serious response.
Well, I mean, that's like the thing about Facebook that we were talking about. I mean, everyone, they take everything so seriously, and they're looking for someone to fuck up, and they're looking for someone to attack. So yeah, there's really not a lot of room for joking or sarcasm or being subtly humorous about something, because you're going to have to explain in great detail exactly what you meant and why you find it funny. It's really not worth it.
No, it's really not. Yeah.
I want to start being brain dead on LinkedIn, though. That's the next level challenge to me, is like, yeah, you can say brain dead things on Twitter and Facebook. Like anybody can do that. But why not LinkedIn, where it's really completely out of place? That's the challenge for 2021, is to get real awkward on LinkedIn. I'm going to
have to make a LinkedIn right after this. Reserve my name.
Is to get quickly banned from LinkedIn.
Well, you won't get banned, but you will definitely never be hired again.
It is such a weird thing, though, like how just going from one website to the other with the exact same content, you receive wildly different results and reactions to it. Like it could be extremely positive if you post it here, but extremely negative if you post it here, or just 100% confusing. Like some things I have this problem with TikTok, where I don't really understand who's on TikTok or what they want to see or what they're into. Mm-hmm. So it's just like constantly trying new things to see what works, and then what doesn't work and gets me suspended.
I do want to point out that LinkedIn is a friend of the Create Unknown, and we're a friend of LinkedIn. And if you go to linkedin.com/create, you'll get $50 off your first job post.
Oh, wow.
So
that was a good tie-in.
We went into a very nice plug on that, didn't we? Boromir has asked me about pizza. I don't know why, but it'll only take 2 seconds. What's my least favorite pizza? Because we did have a segment episodes ago, actually about a year ago, about favorite pizza. My least favorite pizza is something that doesn't have red sauce. It's really that simple. Okay. If it's one of those white pizzas where it's like dough, then cheese, or some odd Alfredo white cream or something like that, it ceases to be pizza. This is a different dish. Barbecue pizza, where it's barbecue sauce and then chicken. Like, I love all the components of these things, but it's not pizza. Don't call it that. So
barbecue pizza is a bastardization of pizza.
It's not that good, is it? No. What's your favorite? So the entire pizza bar is open. They will get any ingredient you want. They will do any crust you want. What pizza are you constructing?
I'll really eat most any pizza, but I really like the greasy thin slice, simple cheese with pepperoni, and that's about it. Something that'll give me heartburn and make me regret it the next day.
I will say, I'll piggyback on your white pizza comment and just mention that I don't know what it is, every 5 years or something, I forget how boring I think white pizza is. And I'll order it thinking, like, just looking at it, like, that looks really different and really awesome. And I want that, and I'll get it, and then immediately regret it. Like one bite in, I'm like, why do I keep forgetting that I don't really like this? Like, it's fine. I'll eat it. But if the alternative is pepperoni pizza with, marinara sauce, whatever, it's a million times better.
It's like going to Cece's back in the day where you have the choice of 50 different pizzas and you can take a slice of each, and your body almost instantly rejects it because it's unnatural.
The Cece's buffet is one of the better laxatives in the world. Dojangles in the Baby Gang says, California pizza kitchens, barbecue chicken pizza is the sex. I've got the window open to ban her from the Discord server right now, and if I get enough votes here, I will push.
I do like that. I do like barbecue pizza. I don't find that. I'll get that every now and then. I'll be fine with that decision.
It's like
I'll just make that clear.
It's like the Bill Cosby sex, though.
What? What does that even mean?
It's not good sex. It's the bad kind.
Coerced and illegal.
Yeah. And should be.
I think there's actually a different word they use for that.
Yeah. Horrific and life ruining.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, good God. Okay, so this is Kino's got two. I said I wouldn't ask this, but I'm going to, because it really is a yes or no kind of question. Have you ever had sexual relations with Emp Lemon?
No.
I suspected it was going to be no.
And I never will.
Emperor Lemon. And you won't. Okay, well, that's news then. If you've committed to keeping this a no for the future, then.
Wait, did he say something?
I know nothing about this. All I do is read the questions.
All right. I'll go with no then for now.
We'll keep that a mystery then. Okay. Kino's real question, and this is a great one for us to end with here, is were there real life inspirations behind the characters in Requiem of the Crazies? And if so, who are they?
Oh, yeah. Back when I used to play in a band, like I said, like 10 years ago or whatever, there was this homeless guy named Bullet who used to come up to the venue and not really harass people. It's not like he was just asking for money, but he just liked to talk to people and people would give him money. But he was the inspiration for one of the main characters, Vern, because he's just like an old black guy with balding hair, like really patchy. And this guy Bullet, I remember once he pulled me close and he said, or he wanted to tell me a joke, and he pulled me close. He said, "I'd fuck you in the ear, but you'd hear me coming." And I remember that was a little hacky, but it was funny coming from this really sketchy homeless dude. But also he would go on and talk about how he lost his family. He used to play the saxophone and he got addicted to drugs, and he's got a daughter and a wife out there somewhere. So that kind of stuck with me. It seemed like it was a really interesting dude who just kind of disappeared over the years. Probably dead.
And when was that? Like what was the era when you were doing that?
2010, 2009-ish.
Okay, so good 10 plus years ago.
Yeah, I actually wrote, I used that character in a few songs actually, or in one song called Requiem of the Crazies. I'm really not original when it comes to coming up with new titles. Once I have something, I just use it for everything. So I had a song about homeless people called Requiem of the Crazies, and the main character is a version of this character, Bullet.
That's good.
I have one more question. I actually have two more questions. Sorry. One is a fun question we ask everybody, but the other one is just to satiate my own curiosity. Do you have a sense of how many issues the comic will run for?
Yeah, I'm planning for 8 issues, and each issue is about 35, and there'll probably be 35 to 45 pages of actual comic book. And I think I can get the story done in 8 issues. Now, I haven't really written anything this long before, So it's possible that I'll have to do more to really get the story out there, because I don't want to like limit myself to 8 issues and then have to rush the ending. So, but yeah,
Right.
probably about there, maybe 8 to 10, something like that.
Okay. Well, I will be picking up all of them. Before we let you get out of here, though, we like to showcase the creativity of our guests. That's kind of the point of this podcast. It's called the Create Unknown. And one of the ways that we'd like to do that is just to ask our guests to come up with a sponsor for the episode. It can be literally anything. Make up a product, make up a brand, make up a rival podcast, anything literally you want will become your sponsor for your episode of the Create Unknown. So, and you could just do, the ad read for that sponsor. So whatever you want, it's all you.
Okay. All right. This episode is brought to you by Dirty Jerry's Instant Mashed Potatoes. Now, you've all eaten mashed potatoes. Sure, they're good, but they just take forever. I mean, you got to buy potatoes, you got to mash them up, you end up using a stick of butter. If only there was a way that you could instantly make mashed potatoes. Well, with Dirty Jerry's Instant Mash, that is exactly what you can do. Now, these potatoes come from the finest potato fields of Idaho, and guaranteed to not give you the runs. That is Uncle Dirty Jerry's mashed potato promise. And they're very cheap.
Do mashed potatoes tend to do that for people? I've never really... Is that a common mashed potato problem?
That's what I liked about it. That's what I liked about the promise.
It's an easy guarantee.
No one's having this problem, so we can promise you that you won't have it.
It's about
with
solving
ours.
a problem that no one has, and you will be 100% successful every time.
It's the classic under promise and over deliver.
Right.
Very effective.
It is. I love the name Dirty Jerry's. That's the brand that I rely upon.
And you can also get flavored.
It's the only potatoes we eat.
You can get flavored versions of this instant mash. There's pickles. There's Gatorade. There's vodka. I don't know.
What color? What color of Gatorade? All of them, or just red, or what?
Ooh, red mashed potatoes. What would be the most disgusting color of mashed potatoes? Probably purple.
High C ecto
Green.
Yeah. All of these work. You can get them in all colors.
Yeah. Yeah. Green mashed potatoes sounds pretty bad.
I think I'm going to try
it. Actually, before we let you get out of here, tell us more about your campaign for issue 3, where people can go, how long it's running for, and where they can pick up the third installment of Requiem of the Crazies.
Okay, great. Requiem of the Crazies. I'm currently crowdfunding it on Indiegogo, and you can get a link to that by going to requiemofthecrazies.com. Though the crowdfunding campaign has reached its goal, here's a little secret. I set the goal very low in order to get it on the trending page on Indiegogo. Once you reach the goal, it kind of says that your project's doing very well. Anyways, you can get the 3rd issue of Requiem of the Crazies there. I also offer a lot of other cool things. You can get the first 2 issues along with some of the perks, stickers, patches, posters, pins, limited time items that you can only get on this campaign. And this campaign's running for, I think, another 46 days until it technically ends, but really you can leave the campaign open. So there's no big rush. However, if you go there and contribute now, you will have the exclusive first come, first serve deal, which I don't really have any benefits for, but I'd greatly appreciate it.
We'll put that link in at the top of this description here, because we really want people to check it out. It's been so good to see you go on to a 3rd one here. A project like that, you never quite know how it's going to be received. First one killed it. Second one killed it. Now you're on to number 3 of what sounds like should be 8 or so. That's awesome. So we'll pop those links in. Pretty much all the Rusty Cage links that matter are going to be at the top of this description. So,
also, sorry, on the campaign, I didn't mean to interrupt. If you haven't read the first 2 and you want to, I have them online. So all the pages are online. The link is on the Indiegogo campaign. If you just scroll down, you'll see a link where you can read part 1 and part 2 for free.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm just so excited that you're doing a comic, dude. Like, everybody has t-shirts or, pins, and you're doing something that you're really passionate about and very few YouTubers have ever done. So that's very exciting to me, and that's why I'm happy to support it. And I would love, for more people to go check it out. We ran long because we just got into intense stuff that I didn't even think we were going to get into.
This is the John Holmes of TCU podcasts.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, don't look up that reference, anyone who doesn't know who that is.
And Tom, don't put the link in the chat either. Skip this one.
Skip that. Just ignore it. Ignore that one. Thank you to all of the lurkers who hung out with us, all the lurkers who are checking us out for the first time. We're here every Wednesday night because, and this is the only reason, TCU night is Wednesday night. So whatever you're doing the rest of the week, good luck. I hope all of those days work out really well for you. But remember that Wednesday night, you come here, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We're on the Discord. And if you want to chat with us, then you just have to become a patron. It's $2. It's $2. Go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown and go do that. Start as a $2 tot. And then who knows, six months from now, you're going to be in the baby gang and your life is just going to be completely upside down.
Yeah.
In the best possible way. Rusty, thank you again for hanging out so long and for hanging out with us at all. And man, good luck on your project. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. I had a lot of fun. I hope my mouth wasn't really spitty. I feel like I can hear it in my headphones.
I didn't notice.
Sounded good to me, but
but
that's going to be Ben's problem when he edits our
sorry,
audio.
Ben.
So as long as it's not a Kevin and Matt problem, then it's fine.
Thank you, guys.
I don't think it's a problem. All right. See you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We'd like to extend a huge thank you and congratulations to the Tots and Dumpster crew who save tiny little lives every month. A tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang: Trevstad, Boromir, Bot Dogs, Chinchilla, Isaac, Conrad, James, Jeff Davis, Patrick Pister, Baseweight, and Dojangles. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry: Jen Meffisanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Risebread, Sean Malone, Monahan, Ryan Kinder, Sheep, and Maruko. Thank you as well to our producer and editor Ben Webster and to our media manager Dan Yosua. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production.